So for me, I think this priority role is actually fairly big.
Yeah, I would happen to agree actually.
And I think it's because there's a lot of centerline extracts. So if they end up playing on Christian, which is Morgan's opponent's extracts, then I think it's pretty impactful.
And it looks like Morgan's picked up Prio. Question for you. If Christian had picked up Prio, do you think he would be more inclined to pick secures to counteract the pay to flips that Morgan is bringing that may affect his ability to utilize his important tactics cards, such as Eye in the
I
Sky?
think
Or do you think he's going to pick his extracts?
I would have expected extracts based on the fact that two of their secures were common. So it was just spider portals that was the difference. Um,
And for this one, we've got Fear Grips and Spider Portal, so we'll be playing at 18.
so I think that's probably a good result for Christian there. I think either of the others may have given Morgan an advantage from being able to grab a center extract.
And playing at 18, do you think Morgan is more inclined to bring some of his bigger hitters, or do you think he's going to be bringing some of his other options?
That's a really good question. So yeah, I think he sort of goes one of two ways, right? So he either does his sort of standard. He's been running a lot of sort of Hulk this season, or he goes sort of a wider list. I think without. So I think that's what I'm sort of expecting is maybe a Hulk list in there, or maybe sort of something wider instead. So I think it'll be interesting, and I think that Christian's probably got a similar choice as to whether or not he takes She-Hulk or goes sort of a wider roster. So I'd be interested to see if we end up with a Hulk off here, or if we end up. I would expect that both players will probably go wider, particularly noting the sort of crisis and the pay to flip component.
I think some conversations are happening at the moment with map orientation and just confirming some terrain details, but we'll soon get on with it, onto the next stage. And yourself, Phil, you've got your own Shield matchup coming up soon. How are you feeling about going into that one?
Uh, Nervous as always. I think going in any finals match. So I think my opponent's got a great list, pretty similar with the crisis setup to Christian here, and he didn't lose any of his leading games. He forfeited his sort of round 6 game. So he's clearly a good opponent, and I think it'll be a very close game either way. So I just hope I make a good showing of it.
And Shield being such an unknown quantity at this point, do you think that moving into this game, that might be giving Christian a bit of an edge in this one against Morgan?
I think so. I think that's maybe where Morgan's practice will pay off. So we played a few practice games as we sort of normally do for both of our opponents this week. And certainly in the first few, there was some surprises for both of us, I think, in sort of how to play into it. So hopefully, I think we've uncovered most of the secrets, but hopefully there's not sort of too many surprises when it comes to the actual matchup.
And while we wait for these gents to decide on what sort of rosters and things they'll be bringing into this game, thinking about the tactic cards, specifically, obviously, Shield being known as the affiliation to have a plethora of options, what do you think we're likely to see in this one?
I think the restricted cards of Brace and Indomitable are probably likely. Um, Eyes on the Prize, I think, is pretty much a must take. So I'd expect those three. And then maybe some change on sort of the last two tactics cards, depending on sort of what characters get picked.
Now, in this situation, I think one of the questions he's asking himself is Helios going to be an option that he's going to be leaning in towards, knowing that, or noting that Morgan's quite famous for bringing his Hulk?
I think it's definitely an option. I would expect Battlefield Medicine probably as a more likely one, sort of that old med pack. Um, as a fourth card. And then I agree with you. I think the question in my mind is really what comes as that fifth card, where it's sort of Helios. Is it Heroes for Hire? Um, or is it something sort of a little bit more movement based, like sit rep or shield and Beal? So I'll be interesting. I think some of it depends on what roster Christian takes.
And looking over to Morgan's options, you've got some of the most powerful and tried and true and classic cards such as your Avengers Assemble. You got your Brace, Do You Know I Am that pairs well with Juggernaut. The Follow Me option as an attrition option is interesting, considering that Morgan's again famously known for playing the mission and the control style. Do you think we'll see much of a Follow Me and a lean into an attrition option?
Potentially, I think. I guess from my assessment, that's probably in there for when Morgan does want to lead into that. So I think if he picks a roster that leans into that attrition option, then I think Follow Me could definitely see the table. Um, but I agree with you. Morgan tends to be sort of pretty considered. I think we will see the sort of standard Avengers cards, sort of Brace, Patch Up, Avengers Assemble, and then I think the last two cards, as you said, is going to be based on sort of what sort of roster he picks, whether it's aggressive or wide or sort of a Hulk roster. So I think those will decide sort of the final two tactics card slots.
And of course, we can't ignore the fact he's got the spicy Malkith splash in there. Do you think that's there just for the Malkith mirror, or do you think it's there as part of his strategy, or is it just there to kind of as a zig and nazag sort of situation? How much of a play do you think that's putting onto his opponent, Christian? Does he have to take that into consideration?
For me, I guess I would always take. I think Malik is such a powerful model at seven threat that you've always got to take it into consideration. Similar to, I guess, probably the fact that there's a Hulk and a She-Hulk. So I think it's probably playing into Morgan's consideration for list building, and it gives him that attrition option. Likewise, Christian's probably. I think he's got to consider it. Um, so certainly for me, I had my final game into a Malekith roster, and I think as long as you're prepared for it, you're all right. But I think it's the threat of it more than anything else that's probably the danger there for me.
All right, it looks like they've decided, and we've got 6 versus 6. Oh, apologies. It looks like Christian had one priority. I assumed.
Oh, okay.
Oh no, sorry. The
No, Morgan
streamer
did get
view.
it.
Yeah, the streamer view is just
Yeah.
throwing me for a twist. That's all. All right, brilliant. So looking, starting with Christian's roster and his lineup, he's got Winter Soldier, the New Howling Fury, Black Widow, Iron Man, Luke Cage, and Nick Fury, of course. And we've got the Helios Laser, Brace, Battlefield Medicine, Eye in the Sky, of course, and Heroes for Hire.
I think that's a. I think you called it there with the Helios call. I think the spicy sort of pick there is the Nick Fury. I'll be interested to see them on the table. That's quite a fun pick there, I think.
And for Morgan's side, we've gone with Sam for leader, of course, Voodoo, Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Black Cat, and Toad. And alongside, we've got Assemble, Heroes for Hire for himself, Mission Objective, Escort, and Patch Up.
Mm. There's some real extract control I think that Morgan's bringing to the table with both Voodoo and Black Cat there. Moving last could be interesting as well with sort of Sam. So I think there's some there's some strong plays I think Morgan will have later in the game for those extracts. It'll be interesting to see if the offensive output of Shield with those hammers is enough to sort of offset that extract control.
So it's interesting, like you said, with the Howling Commandos option. Typically, the play pattern I've seen with them is to leverage quite a medium to a large base with the 3 threat version of apologies. What's the repositioning movement superpower called?
It is Siblings in Arms. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's the one. So typically you have them move up and they obviously ping someone in the midline to get that extra power needed, and then they can obviously position them forward to really leverage some of the extra movement. But not having a center extract to kind of take the advantage of that. Do you think they're just there purely to allow for like some hammer plays? Do you think there is a hammer play in there utilizing that piece?
For me, I think it's more about the 3 energy defense, personally. So I think some of his other options, I think he offers another piece that's good on the secures. Because I think with Black Widow in there and things like Venom and also Hawkeye, you've got some pieces there that aren't as strong on the secure. So I think he offers that as well as potentially some extract plays there as well. It'd be interesting to see that if the Howling Commandos goes along with Winter Soldier for sort of some double sort of jumping actions with sibling in arms and Hydra tactics.
Oh, absolutely. You can definitely get a lot of movement basically pairing those two together, I imagine. Now, obviously, with Morgan, he has both Iron Fist and Luke Cage, so Heroes for Hire is going to be present across the board. So, two options to pair with that. And the choice for mission objective, obviously, just to keep safe, is Hammer for perhaps the midline one who he walks up. Um, do you think, how early do you think we're going to see Avengers assemble?
I think it will be, from my view, I think it will be a flexible timing based on, I think Morgan tends to look at points. So I would expect to see it when there's either a potential to protect his own points or earn some points with the use of the card. So I would not expect it's probably super early unless there's sort of a turn one play that he needs to sort of secure one of the hammers back to his own side.
And I think you've called it, mate. That seeing the Winter Soldier and his best friend, the Howling Fury Commandos, perhaps we might see a little bit of tactics and some movement shenanigans going on there in this game.
Yeah, I can see them being good together in the fact that it's a larger base as well for Winter Soldier to leap off, and I think I could. I'm expecting Winter Soldier to grab that back hammer. I think he's pretty devastating when you give him an extra dice on those rapid fire attacks.
Just putting down the final pieces here, trying to navigate that very large piece of terrain. Now Morgan with priority, it'll be interesting to see which side he decides and which piece he's going to leverage going forward to pick up his hammer, which I imagine will be his opening play. Do you expect to see Fury and the Grunts perhaps being a bit greedy and going, oh no, as we can see from deployment, this is definitely not the case.
No, I'm expecting Fury and the Grunts maybe to be used as a bit of an attrition piece here, but I'm expecting Tone to go first to grab that hammer. Yeah, I think Morgan's already measuring it out. And I think Morgan will sit on. I'm expecting a sort of a Doctor Voodoo to sit as a late activation to pressure that other hammer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, with Iron Man and Black Widow as his only opponents at this point, focusing on that hammer, wouldn't be too out of the realm to assume that Voodoo moves and acquires a bit of power and is able to make them drop it.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think the fact that there's only a 2 and a 3 threat there put the chances of that possession turn one. If I mean, all you need is a sap or a damage and a skull, and you've got it. Or 2 damage, or there's multiple combinations there where Voodoo gets the power he needs. And he got the skull too, so Morgan will be able to place him off the point there. So he does get it. But so I think we're seeing Morgan just spawn a separate token here. I think, the shield. So Christian's grabbing shield tokens here,
Yeah, perfect.
just so there's a difference.
looking at Helios as a tool, I'd imagine that looking at the roster, perhaps Voodoo would be, or maybe even Iron Fist would be the priority for utilizing that tool. Do you think he might be a bit disappointed not to have seen the tried and true and the typical fashion of the Hulk and the Juggernaut sort of combo?
Uh, I think maybe that's what it was. So I think maybe Morgan's picked it. I guess his counter pick is to play wide with Voodoo and Cat, which is still a very strong um, sort of mix. So I think that's I think you're right. I think that Voodoo. Sorry, I think the Helios is definitely there in if sort of for those bigger targets.
We've just
So I think
seen,
Morgan will be happy to see it as one of his tactics cards.
yeah, I think so too. We've just seen Morgan's Voodoo come up actually, picking up the other side hammer, and now putting himself in range for an Iron Man and a Black Widow to come and say hello.
Oh, that's pretty rough for Christian. He's rolled 0 successes there and
Oh,
got the skull.
dear, oh dear.
So I think Morgan would be fairly happy at the moment. I mean, he's got picked both side hammers up, and Christian's been unlucky enough that he's going to have to divert one of his characters to get that back secure. Um, so I think, I mean, initially I think the variance has definitely gone in Morgan's way here. So it'll be interesting to see if Fury comes over or if you see Widow come over to try and have a go at that other point.
It certainly alleviates a lot of the pressure available to Voodoo as well. I think Morgan's trying to see if he can get a second body perhaps on that portal and see if he can flip it. It's going to be a bit of a
Yeah,
reach.
that's size 3. I might stop him here.
I must say, a lot of the games I play, either seeing Black Cat across the table, I always just assume that she has Wallcrawler, considering, her character and everything, and I just think, oh my gosh, there's just nothing that can stop that girl.
Yeah, I'll be honest. A lot of my early games with her, I thought exactly the same. I'm like, oh, cat burglar climbing up buildings.
Oh, and
Um,
she is able to get there. Nothing can stop her, it seems.
yeah, the long movers, and I think that's probably another added strength of Morgan's list here is he's got 2 long movers between sort of Black Cat and Sam, and you've got Toad that's quite maneuverable.
And he's nailed it,
So he's
and no skull either. Wonderful.
got, yeah, okay. So I think we're seeing Widow come over here and have a go for that secure.
Only 2 dice. Can't feel good about that. Oh
Oh,
my
this,
goodness.
this is painful to watch. He's having a very rough run of it. But inevitably, if your dice start bad, they'll warm up pretty hot later on.
That's
So
it. It's always the case, isn't it?
yeah, MCP variants can be pretty punishing at times, but it does always seem to even out in the longer term.
That 18 dice Helios laser, I'm certain is going to do work. At least until 1/3 threat. Iron Fist coming up to pick up, and I assume he's going to use both power to pick up and interact.
It's doing the secure first, which tells me that maybe not. Maybe he's just going for the. Because I think if he was going to do it, you'd go for the extract first, so you weren't at risk of getting placed. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that hammer go to Sam, maybe.
Oh wow, the full. I mean, you have to do it, don't you?
Yeah, it's rough. I think that's really probably cost his turn 1 play, and he's got another skull. That's
Oh,
really cost Christian's probably turn 1 plan here, in the fact that he's had to put 3 characters to get that back point, which is really rough. And it's denied him an opportunity, I think, to have a crack at Voodoo on that far portal.
so does this mean Voodoo Is Freen able to simply roam around with his 1 point guaranteed a turn, or do you think we're going to see him get himself back into the game?
I would expect Voodoo a little bit later, I think, to come into it once he's got some power. I mean, Morgan plays pretty safely, so I think if he's got a lead here, he'll, I think, try and avoid the fight is my expectation. Um, so I'm expecting a couple of point swing here, turn one to Morgan, based on sort of how it's panned out. So I think that far portal over near Toad will probably stay as Christians, and I'm expecting the rest of the board to sort of lie as is. So I think Morgan will be scoring probably 5 to 3 turn one. So he'll have a 2 point lead based on the hammers.
Oh yes, and we're looking to line ourselves up. Voodoo not completely safe just yet. Sure, there's
I
many
quite like,
tales of woe of Winter
yeah,
Soldier with a hammer.
I like this because I think it forces some decisions. It puts some pressure on Morgan now to activate Voodoo first, which is probably a good thing for Christian. So I think that was a really good move with Winter Soldier there. Yeah, so Morgan's abandoning that point. So certainly in a couple of games we played, when Fury gets power for that eye in the sky, it's absolutely devastating. So this might even be Morgan denying him some power generation. If you can't attack, you can't get the power.
I suppose
So
he's
it's probably
thinking, does he want to leverage Luke Cage as a potential bodyguard piece with the Heroes for Hire to try and keep that hammer safe? Or is he just going to rely on Toad's innate ability to slippery and basically rotate to the rest of his team? And it looks like he's coming up here to set himself up for future turns to protect someone like a Voodoo and a Black Cat, perhaps.
yeah. I do like that he's rotating Cage here. I think keeping Voodoo and Cat alive for later in the game is a good call. I think because I think they are going to earn him a lot more points with some of their extracts stealing instead of the later half of the game.
And though we are missing some green ticks, this is the last activation for the round, giving Morgan priority for turn 2. Just the double move to set themselves up perhaps for later into turn 2. Now, having this much pressure on Toad, one would assume that Toad would be the priority piece for Morgan to pick to get out of dodge, or do you think he'll perhaps value Voodoo and get him away from a Winter Soldier?
Uh, this is where I think normally I would say I would expect an Avengers Assemble, but the hammer on Voodoo prevents it. Um, but I'm expecting Toad will go first because I think Morgan may not be unhappy if Voodoo ends up sitting on a whole bunch of power, because potentially at that point, if he doesn't get the KO, Voodoo can come and do a counter possession on Winter Soldier, grab the hammer, and then start running. And I think that'll be a really tough situation for Christian here. So I'm expecting Toad to go first. Yeah, there we go. But I like Christian's setup there. He's used his last activation to put pressure on both pieces for Morgan. So I think that sort of shows the quality of player that he is.
And looking at the board, having Luke Cage so far out to the left with the rolling the skull is really taken off Heroes for Hire as potentially a useful option going into turn 2 and turn 3 as well. Certainly not
I agree.
a board state that he wasn't looking forward to, I'm sure.
I think his turn one plans are just thrown to the wind with the variants, which is pretty rough.
All right, we got Winter Soldier going in. We've got 2 with the rapid fire online, but we are blocking 2.
And a bleed there as well. So
Oh,
it's a big
sorry,
hit
it's
again.
taking 1.
It's a good
All right,
spike for both. So
4 coming into this time. But Very nice defensive roll as well.
I think Morgan will be happy here if he can avoid getting dazed.
Needing to do 3 on this last one. Oh, and there it is.
I wonder if we'll see a mission objective here. But there's probably no need. I think Morgan can just walk and pick it up.
And of course, this gives us our wonderful SAM activation. Do you think it'll be Black Cat just to move on up?
Yeah, I think Black Cat's a safe one in the fact that you save the movement, but I don't think at the same time it's not necessary. So I'm interested to see if it's actually Toad, if Toad moves across. I think, yeah, it's either Toad or Black Cat.
Now, of course, Fury only having 2 power at this time and rotating away from him, it does open up him up to potentially some attrition coming through from Morgan with Eye in the Sky offline. But looking at the board, there's not too many options really to leverage that opportunity. But I think Morgan's happy sitting where he is, isn't he? And just collecting his parity points and forcing his opponent to come to him.
Yeah, I agree. I think Morgan can sort of hunker down here, and I think Christian's going to have to spend some activations or actions moving towards, which I think will favour Morgan in the longer term of the game. But unfortunately, that's how it rolls out when you get a bad start to it. So I'm expecting Morgan to stay on the point here based on the fact that these Highland Commandos can't move and shoot. No, he's going for the safe play, sending it back.
Not having any power on Black Cat, I would imagine that he's not particularly keen on putting her in a position to get wailed on.
Yeah, I think maybe it does open Voodoo. By keeping those pieces back and safe, you open Voodoo up to an aggressive early activation next round.
Really starting to see the high level of these players with a lot of the pre-measuring going on here. Something you'll see consistently across a lot of these top 32 players is that they'll take their time, do all the measurements, consider all the options, not just what's happening in front of them, but also what's going to happen into turn 3, who has priority. Well, everyone's powers at. It's wonderful to see them taking their time because they know how important these opening movements are.
So Morgan's passed. So with the grunts there, that gives Morgan an option to pass, even though he's actually got the same. So that daze has helped him.
All right, Widow for a second time with 2 dice.
I'm almost rooting for her to get this.
Yeah,
Yeah, there we go.
as am I. Easy within 3. Oh, just the double move.
Maybe he doesn't want to risk spiking and having Winter
Yeah,
Soldier take him out.
of
But
course. Oh, here we
yeah,
go.
I do like the flying kick just for the power generation.
Black Widow won't be getting Blanks counting, unfortunately, so blocking none, but only taking one.
I think we're seeing the counter strike. The counter strike here. And unluckily missed the trigger.
Looking for two. Oh, and he's absolutely bossed it and no skull inside either.
Yeah, so good activation from Iron Fist there.
Yeah, sitting on 3 power at the moment, so just inching one step closer towards that juicy 8 power for his spender.
Quite like this, if he can get there with Howling Commandos. I think Howling Commandos with the range 4 into Iron Fist is quite a good way of getting around that martial artist. So
Unfortunately, not having anyone for Howling Commandos to target in the midline turn 1 and having to force them to use their power early on, they still don't have access to their wonderful superpower to translocate essentially and move people around. So won't be seeing any cool janky movement plays just yet, but I'm sure it's coming very soon. Now, I'm not too familiar with the measurements, but if he's just outside 3 and he hits with the wild on the builder, do you think his base will be able to make it over to the portal?
just doing some rough estimation based on the eyeballing, I think so. I think the base will put him over.
Alright, let's see how it goes.
He didn't get the wild trigger here.
Oh, and a triple skull. Well, deserves him right. He's rolled no skulls for any of these portals. It's about time we saw some, I think.
So I think that could have been a really impactful Howling Commandos activation if he'd got the wild there and had been able to interact on the portal. It's good to see both players are keeping pace fairly consistently with the clock speeds as well. So the game's sort of moving along, certainly from my view, at a pretty good pace.
Yeah, do you think? Well, we all know that Morgan's had a lot of experience up in the top cut and utilizing clocks and stuff like from last season. I'm not too familiar with Christian's experience in the cuts and things like that. Do you think he's had a lot of experience on the clock?
I'm not sure. I know Christian went 6-0 in the in sort of the main rounds, but I'm not sure sort of what his background is as far as playing with clocks. So I think this is certainly the first time I remember that we've actually gone to clocks. Certainly at a 60-minute time. So yeah, I'm not sure if he's played other games with it, but I don't think so. Is my short answer.
But he's certainly keeping pace and keeping aware of his time, isn't he?
Yeah, he is, and like if you look at it, they're almost dead even for time, and they're both sort of taking the time to do their pre-measuring, as you mentioned earlier. So I think it's good that it doesn't seem that either of them is being uncomfortably forced into sort of quicker activations without having the time to sort of think through things, which is good.
Interesting to note, no tactic cards still used, and we're getting close to the end of round 2. Unusual to see, but I think both players pushing for the parity and the lack of attrition. I mean, they've both taken a lot of defensive options, and not too many dice have been thrown just yet, but I'm sure those cards will come online very soon.
So I think it's if Morgan can hold on to this um, to his sort of 5 points again here, I think it'll be a strong sort of turn two, sort of put a sort of scoreline of sort of 10-6, which should really sort of put some pressure on Christian to get some aggressive plays back. So I think earning a point back here in some capacity, whether it's one of those hammers or that back secure, I think is going to be important for Christian if he can get the points. But I think it's a tall order to ask. With I can't see Iron Man making that far point. Um, and I think there's a risk that if Fury goes and double moves and interacts with that back portal, that Sam just pushes him off and gets it back.
Especially with the extra dice from their hammer as well.
Yeah,
And of course, Sam doing such great work into the grunts with the ricochets, and it's very likely they'll be able to punish him moving forward and putting him out of position like that. Because of course, Fury looking to leverage the attrition option with those grunts online. When you start putting some power on him and getting those spenders going, he can really do a world of hurt.
I think Morgan will avoid killing them personally. I think it's an interest. This is what I found really interesting playing into some practice games with Shield. Is when you're ahead, you almost don't want to kill them at all. It gives you a really interesting decision point as to whether or not you go for a couple of dazes to try and save you some points, or whether you try and hold on to the points that you've already got. So I think that the leadership giving you that extra VP back is really strong, and I think it creates a sort of fun play dynamic where you're under pressure to sort of not go after those grunts. So I think it's interesting to see if Morgan will even attack Fury here.
We've got a ping. I'm not exactly sure what's happening.
I think
I
that might
think
have
that
been
perhaps
Morgan
just,
saying that, yeah, that the secure's moved a bit and he's
yeah,
resetting.
just a reset, yeah. Just cleaning up the board. Of course, Black Widow has activated at this point, so we've just got Fury to go after Sam has completed his turn, and then we'll be going into round 3. Now, Winter Soldier has certainly got that power online. Wondering if he's going to be able to utilize that to get some movement, get him into position, and really start causing havoc. Who do you think the first point of call will be? I assume it would be Voodoo.
I think Voodoo goes first here. I think we're going to see a possession in some form. I'm expecting Voodoo to end up with Winter Soldier's hammer to not only reduce his attrition, but also to just earn some points back. So I'm expecting almost a move, possess, move away again, potentially sort of Heroes for Hire range for Iron Fist, or even an Avengers Assemble in some capacity there as well. So it looks like going into Toad here. Oh no, into Sam. I don't mind that at all. Put a bit of scoring pressure on Sam. But this will mean that if Toad doesn't daze here, Morgan will get the 5 VPs again.
Oh, it's tight. Oh,
Oh, it's just out.
just out.
It was really close. I think looking at the range 3 here for Heroes for Hire for Cage.
All right, and that'll be round. And I think Morgan getting another 5.
So that's big. I think Morgan being able to hold that hammer again that second round. So I'm expecting an aggressive voodoo activation, maybe even with an Avengers Assemble mixed in to probably keep Sam safe at the beginning here.
Now, curious, with Eye in the Sky online, I'm assuming we're not going to be seeing any sort of aggressive option. It's simply going, like just like you said, move forward, possess, and retreat. Who do you think Eye in the Sky is going to be protecting if in this situation? Because from what it seems like, Morgan's very happy just to play the keep away game and not give his opponent any opportunities.
Yeah, I agree. I think Eye in the Sky might almost. I think that's Morgan almost trying to play around Eye in the Sky is the way I read that. I think
Yeah,
it's such an impactful card that I think it's affected his play patterns, but he hasn't needed to attack. So I'm not expecting Morgan to attack too much here and give that. I think he'll be looking to avoid giving that victory point back unless attacking a character will sort of give him a point back. I think we're seeing Morgan just sort of measure out the move possess range just to make sure he's able to actually pick up that hammer. Yeah, there we go.
and there it is.
I'm interested to see here if Morgan Avengers Assembles off the back of this to put Voodoo behind that car, potentially Iron Fist in cover, and I think Sam in a safe direction.
They were pre-measuring before. Did you happen to notice if Luke Cage was within 2 of Fury or not?
I'm not sure, but I think eyeballing that, I think so, but I don't think for the grunts. So I'd expect Sam to maybe move here and Luke Cage to stay as is. Oh no, Cage is moving too. So Cage must have been on 3 power. Yeah, so Cage was on 3. So doing the move still allows him to 2 dangerous to ignore on both the shield agents or Fury.
Now, if things stay as they is, Morgan's going to go up to 15. Do you think this might mean that he's going to push for an aggressive option? I'm not sure where he could possibly do that. Maybe Toad doesn't have enough power for the hop and the double move to get there. But is he going to try and push for the 16 and close it out this turn? Or is he
I
happy
think
just...
Morgan will. I think he'll play safe. So he's got to get it this turn. I think Morgan would need 2 secures. So he's got the 4 hammers at the moment, but he would need the 2 secures to get it. So I'm not expecting, and that's assuming that Christian can't get one back, which I think is probably likely. He'll be able to daze at least one of Morgan's characters here. So I'm expecting. I think it'll go into the next round. I think it'll be a big win for Morgan if he can close it out this round. But I'm not expecting him to push for it.
This is, of course, assuming that Toad or perhaps even that home objective is going to get taken off by Christian. But, you know, looking at the opening turn, hopefully the rolls improve for him.
Yeah, I really do feel that the crisis, the secure, has really helped Morgan here. I think just how those rolls, the turn 1 panned out, I think really hurt Christian's initial setup.
All right, we've got Widow taking back no skulls. And of course, I think she's going to be setting up for the Hydra tactics to Get Winter Soldier into position to start blasting.
Yeah, and Winter Soldier can do some real work once he gets in range. Curious if Morgan maybe does something sneaky here with Toad, like a double move and interact on that other portal. Um,
Looks to be the nice safe route, putting pressure on his opponent. As far as just the points and the opportunity to seal it off this turn.
mm. And it means the Howling Commandos are the only ones who'll be able to go in there at the moment to actually score that because Winter Soldier's still possessed.
Potentially Iron Man with a double move and fly, but
Yeah, that's a good call. I think he can probably. Well, there you go. He's starting to swing back the other way a little bit. So Morgan didn't
yeah,
get that
failure and
roll.
a skull. Interesting.
Morgan's continuing his very clinical sort of approach.
Yeah, it seems that when you take the most offensive, potentially the most offensive faction, and really lean into the defensive options, simply not attacking them and just playing the objective and pushing pushing for the win as early as possible seems to be a very effective strategy into Shield.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. I think Morgan will be happy with sort of how this has played out so far. I'll be interested to see if we get a Helios laser come out here at some point, but I think Iron Man might be too far back. So maybe early next turn.
We'll need to be coming out soon because at this rate, it's not looking good.
Cage on cage action.
Yeah, and the skulls continue. Blocking one, so no damage. We're running back to turn 0. Is this board state purely stipulated off the fact that Morgan was able to get his secures and basically put himself in this position?
I think so. I think this is probably the one secure that Christian didn't want. I mean, the other two were common between them, so you would assume that Christian would be pretty happy playing on um, those secures. But I think, yeah, the secure drawing spider portals, I think, certainly helps Morgan out. So Morgan's going to give a victory point away here, but he'll. So I think he's looking to do the trade-off, I guess, for him is it maybe by dazing or removing the agents here, Toad is a little bit safer.
Well, I take back my previous statement about the skulls. 4 skulls in that roll.
So yeah, agents are surviving this. So and that'll feed Fury another power too.
Yes. Luke Cage sitting comfortably on that 3 power though, so Heroes for Hire and Too Dangerous to Ignore, both sitting there available. It looks like Iron Man setting himself up for future turns.
Yeah, maybe looking to stay outside that same shield throw range.
Same only on that 1 power, meaning that his charge isn't there. Such an interesting dynamic seeing these two teams come together like this. Lots of resources on board with their tactics cards.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So I think a lot of the community are a little bit cold on Shield once the ruling on the initiative came out. So it was really interesting to see, and positive, I think, to see the success of Shield already making cut with a few lists this season. So I think it's showing that people like Christian have been able to unlock something in the list and get some success out of it, which is it's always good to see for a new faction.
Morgan taking off those grunts, taking away some of the potential attrition that Fury has access to. Does mean that Christian will get another point, but I think at this point, Morgan being so far ahead and holding all 4 hammers, I think he's happy to give that point over, really.
Yeah, so I think that might have been a trade-off to protect one of Morgan's points. So I'm interested to sort of see his thought process in that activation, because up until that point, he sort of avoided dazing. So I think that was interesting to see the change of approach there towards the end.
And we got the Hydra taxis coming out. Wondering if anyone's in range 5. Surely. Surely.
So it's interesting to see if Morgan pays the 2 here to return the possession token.
And of course, Winter Soldier being possessed means that he's only got the 4 dice now rather than the 5.
Yeah, so Morgan's paid the 2, so he'll get his 4 dice, and Winter Soldier will be able to interact again now with the crisis tokens.
Oh, that's a mighty 3 into 0.
But he'll have cover there, I think, so block one more.
Rapid fire coming in. Some discussion between the players perhaps around the dice.
This is the rapid fire follow up. The blocking this so far because of the cover.
Morgan certainly taking advantage of that car being there, protecting himself, and having 1 less hammer, 1 less dice. Certainly starts to cripple the rapid fire nature of the Winter Soldier and his output.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was really scary when he was sitting on that 5 dice, but once you sort of take it down by 1, his output really does go down. It's showing the strength of that positioning was all possible due to Avengers Assemble. So I think really highlights the strength of that tactics card, and I think the good use that Morgan got out of it then.
Oh, we may have spoken too soon. Blocking 2 with cover. 4 out of 4. Not too bad.
Interested to see if he does the Heroes for Hire here for the last attack. Yeah, there we go.
And here it comes. Now, the Immortal Weapon's already taken 2. And I'm assuming, of course, looking at that, he's outside 3. So no blanks. We'll be interested to see if he's able to take him off with this 1 attack, but gaining cover as well.
So Morgan might be looking here at the mission objective side. So he was looking just then at Howling Commandos, because Howling Commandos will be able to place off Iron Man here with that Siblings in Arms. So he might be trying to avoid the range there
Oh,
to
and
keep
he's
himself safe.
blocked it all. And here comes the throw. Or is it a push? Apologies.
It is a throw. It's a throw away. So I think Morgan's Winter Soldier should get a bleed here. And a throw away.
In this situation, do you think you go throwing into a character, or it doesn't really matter at this point?
If it was me, I would go into Widow here because you've already given up the VP for the leadership, so there's no downside to giving the damage, and Winter Soldier's already flush on power. So I'd be looking to put some pressure on Widow so you can potentially daze her easily next turn.
Taking 3, blocking none.
So that'll get her. And there we go. Remembered the bleed.
Of course, Howling Commando is still online to be able to put themselves in a position having 3 power and have a bit of a go into Voodoo. But as you said, mission objective online certainly takes that option away. And Iron Man being activated as well, it's unlikely he'll be able to do much about the hammer.
Mm. So I quite like some of Morgan's layered defensive tech. I think his tactics cards are helping him a lot here.
Of course,
Escort to
escort to
safety is
safety.
another
Yeah.
potential option to pull him out, to pull Voodoo in further back and then go right at the end. So I think there's a couple of, as you just said, a couple of hidden layers there in the defensive tech.
Of course, going into Morgan's turn, patch up is also available if he wants to keep Voodoo around by healing for 4. Plenty of options there, so I think it's very unlikely that hammer to trade hands anytime soon.
Hmm. Yeah, good call on the patch up too.
Now, of course, the current board state, we've only got Morgan getting 5. Triple checking these. Yes, yes, yes. How likely do you think it's going to be to see Toad potentially dropping this hammer from attrition, from Fury?
I'm going to say unlikely based on the fact that Luke Cage is in range for Nick Fury. So he can too dangerous to ignore at least the first attack. So it's possible that Fury could move and then get an attack on Toad.
Yes.
But I think Toad's going to survive, and I think Morgan's got two. He's got Toad and Black Cat both with the potential to be able to flip portals here. So I think if Christian's not careful here, you could see Morgan play for one of these secures.
Of course, with no one standing on the one to the far right, Black Cat's prime option, just to come over there and interact. And of course, Toad, as I said before, I'm not sure if he can make it on the double move, but I assume it'd be close. Could potentially steal that one as well, so we could still see a round 3 finish.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Toad goes here. Because Nick Fury will just have his normal attack, and if chooses, if he can stay outside normal attack range here, then if Christian goes for Toad, he won't be able to actually interact with the point. So either way, I think Toad's fairly safe here, interacting with this portal. So I think if Morgan gets this, there's a good chance that unless he Toad dazes, that'll be game at the end of this turn.
3 from 3. Toad showing off just why he's the best 2 threat in the game, I'd say.
Yeah, he's a great piece for scenario. It's been really interesting to see sort of slow meteoric rise as Okoye sort of disappeared.
And just look at how much movement that large base and that wonderful superpower gets him. Amazing.
So he will get the cover here. But I'm interested to see now if Morgan will escort to safety this. No. Maybe
So the
saving the
pursuit
card.
is there.
So Morgan will block this, I think.
Now the pursuit, does that allow him to potentially move over that car? Or being size 2, I'm sure it doesn't matter.
Well, Morgan, I'm not sure.
Oh.
Did he do enough here?
I'm not sure what's happened.
Unless Voodoo only had the 1 health left. No, Voodoo had 2.
He did
He's
have
taken
2
2 there.
left. Yeah, and with cover and the shield, he should be blocking this all.
I mean, the cover is optional, so he could have, but even then it was only 1 damage, so I'm not sure. That's an interesting one maybe to ask after the game. Yeah,
Voodoo
okay,
off
so
the
mission
board, but mission objective, keeping the hammer safe on Iron Fist. Now with Luke Cage activated, it's only Fury that's available to flip that back point that Luke Cage is sitting on. Are we more likely to see Fury move towards Toad?
I don't know. I think it's an interesting decision point here, whether Fury just moves, attempts to interact with the other portal. But I think Morgan's left a lot of work for Fury to do here.
Now, of course, that was only the 1 attack from the Howling Commandos yet, so it's not all over yet.
And that'll give Morgan a leadership trigger as well. So this is what he's measuring out for the Voodoo days.
Ah, yes. And being a size 2, he can certainly get up on that. Assuming his base can fit. Outside of Spender. And healing the 1, of course, as well.
Yeah, that's...
It's not going to be enough. Now, Fury really does need to put some work in, because at this point, with just 1 activation, there are 6 points in the pocket of Morgan at the moment, with both those portals online as well, with a big A on them. It's going to be interesting to see what Fury can do about it.
I'm interested to see if Cat goes for this other objective now. So I take this as Morgan is happy to play a little bit risky with Cat here to try and close the game out. Go for the second secure. Oh, sorry, the third secure. And that'll really that'll leave too much work for Fury to be able to do in the one round.
All right.
Yeah, it gets it.
Gets it. So looking at this, I think that would be game at this point. There's no way Fury's going to be able to cap potentially both of these with the amount of movement he has access to. So I think
That'll
Morgan
be
going to 16.
7. Yeah. I think you'll get 7. I think you'll actually go to 17. Unless Fury can take one of these points back. But I mean, crazy stuff does happen, right?
It's true. It is Marvel for a reason. There are 8 sides to those dice, and there are crits. So who knows?
Like Fury's got just enough power. He could do something crazy where he spawns the grunts in, moves, dazes Sam, and then gets total in the 1. Yeah, GG. They're calling
GG.
it.
All right. All right, we're just going to rotate now back into their channel to have a quick little chat, ask some questions, and get some post-game thoughts. Bear with us for a moment.
Yeah, it was rough. Although my defense dice were horrendous. Your attacks were pretty good, but the scenario just was luckily it was fast enough.
Good evening, gents. Congratulations, Morgan, and a great game from you as well, Christian. Wonderful to see both you top level players coming at it. Would you mind just having a quick chat with us if that's all right post game?
Sure.
Great. Morgan, let's start with you, mate. Congrats again for the wonderful win. Lovely to see some great plays from yourself. I was interested just to ask, obviously being so notable for your Hulk play, I was interested to see that no Hulk or Juggernaut, no big boys to call for at all in the opening for your roster selection. Can you walk us through that decision?
Yeah, I mean it's a tough decision because I love playing Hulk and Juggernaut, but I think into Shield with the ability for Christian to go so wide on a pay to flip. So the first thing is on pay to flips, if your opponent can go wider, they generally have an advantage. Generally, not all the time. So that would mean he would be probably 1 wider than me if I went 5 and he went 6 wide. So and the second thing is with Shield, the eye in the sky negates a lot of those sort of big boys, and he playing that from round 2 onwards means I'm really struggling to make the damage land with them. And the third thing is that if I get up on points, I actually give him VPs by dazing. And playing the big boys, you generally get an advantage through attrition by dazing and KOing, and then your opponent having less models. But if I do that into Shield, he just keeps getting VPs. So with those things combined, I thought I'd be better off playing as wide as I can and try and match him 6 for 6. I guess he was going to go 6 wide, and try and use my superior mobility on my characters and my tactics cards to play a defensive points game to try and just hang on to a lead and hold on before he does enough attrition to get the points back.
Christian, and just to dovetail on that, I have a question for you as well. Going into your roster selection, I saw that you had Helios online with one of your tactics cards. Was this because you were assuming that Morgan was likely to bring either a Hulk or a Juggernaut, or even both, and you brought this as a bit of a nuclear deterrent for yourself?
I mean, for this, yeah, sure, but you can go on a injured Voodoo or Sam are prime targets for this.
Yeah, excellent.
I had a quick question as well. Just for you, Christian, I guess how much did that turn 0 secure rolls, I guess, impact your game plan?
Turn 1, you mean?
Turn 1, yeah.
Yeah, it totally destroyed my game plan because I had no pressure on the one side, and because I not only did not flip, I rolled skulls, so like my whole game startup was totally destroyed. And then he got the flip against against Black Widow with his Iron Fist 3 dice needing 2 successes, and this was probably already game over in turn 2. And then I tried to play ultra aggressive, but these guys are so fast, like Captain America can go like from one side to the other with no problems and try the flip there, and so I didn't get back in the game.
Christian, just another question for you. Losing priority there, do you think that would have, like, notably S.H.I.E.L.D's win rate is very heavily skewed based on priority rolls looking at Longshank's data. Do you think losing priority there was a big influence as well?
I didn't take a look at his crisis, but I mean, I don't know. I don't. Perhaps I would have picked extracts and just hope portals doesn't come up, because I don't like to play skrulls or mutant extremists so much either. But yeah, the portals pretty much damn shield. Portals and meteors are pretty bad for them.
Unfortunate to see all those skull rolls early on, Christian, but I thought you made some wonderful plays throughout the game. Some unlucky dice there, but I thought I played a really tight game, mate. Congrats on the great game. But congrats to you, Morgan, obviously, for the win. Thanks so much, gents. Phil, did you have any other questions for him before we finish up?
Just one for Morgan. So I guess, how heavily did you consider going potentially even like a more violent Malekith option into that? Was that ever part of your sort of consideration with Malekith there in your roster?
Look, I think the baseline is every time I play a matchup, can I put Malekith in here, and why do I want to do it to do some murder? Because that's probably more enjoyable to play. Like, this was a very technical game, but kind of boring for probably both of us because there wasn't much action apart from his Winter Soldier killing my guys. So I'm always looking for an excuse to play Malekith, but as I spoke about before, with against S.H.I.E.L.D. with Eye in the Sky, and his VPs on me dazing and KOing characters, I mean, Malekith is probably the worst pick, maybe into S.H.I.E.L.D. maybe, unless I can just go ham on Fury early. So it would have been a fun choice, but I don't think it would be a very smart choice. I think. What do you is that sort of align with your thoughts, Christian, and experience with S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Yeah, I mean, if you have like, what is it, Voodoo and a 3-threat gas here, I'm pretty happy about it, I think, in this crisis combination. And yeah, you don't get Fury, he's pretty far back then.
Yeah.
Or if you want to get him, you need to like commit for 2 turns.
Yeah. And I think you're probably too good at. Well, I don't. You're too good of a player to let Malekith get Fury easily, where it would give me an advantage. So I think it'd be fine against a lesser experienced player and a lesser person who hasn't got as good as Christian. But for him to go 6-0 in his bracket, I mean, that's a very good player. So you can't get away with some cheap Malekith tricks there.
All right, thanks again so much, gents, for letting us document and commentate on your game. The footage will be going up on the YouTube channel if you want to have a look. Best of luck for the rest of the bracket, Morgan, and thanks so much again, Christian, for a great game.
Yep, thanks, bye.
Thanks, and well played, Christian. Well done on a great season, and hopefully I'll see you in the future, and good luck for the next season.